My Hero Academia is a series that has left a permanent mark on the manga and anime communities. And with its ending not too long ago, it has left a lot of people thinking back. The hype for it hasn't totally dissipated. In fact, it's still as great as ever, with the main anime to receive its final season this fall, and the debut of a series which is going to be the focus of this video, My Hero Academia Vigilantes. For those who don't already know, My Hero Academia Vigilantes is a spin-off series of the original My Hero Academia manga. It takes place in the same universe, some years before the main story with Deku and All Might begins. When I first got into My Hero, I'd never even heard of this before, and it wouldn't be for a while that I would even figure out what it is. I discovered it when I started hearing people talk about all these things in regard to Aizawa that I'd never heard of before, only to realize he was in this completely unknown, to me, spin-off series. So, before I continue, I do want to make it clear that there will be some minor spoilers for the overall story of Vigilantes, as well as spoilers for the main story of My Hero, but I will try and keep it as spoiler-free as possible, especially for those who are just getting into it through the newly released anime. I'll mainly be using the first and second episodes of the anime, those that have been released as of the writing of this script for the video, as reference for the points of what I'm talking about. So that'll be most of where the spoilers do come from. So in this video, I want to talk about, well, as the title says, the charm, which is why I, Professor Caspian, am here to discuss it. I feel this spin-off's writing gives a unique feeling that I want to discuss in relation to the overall series, and since a lot of people are going to be talking about it now that the anime adaptation has been released, I thought this would be a perfect time for this channel. So, without further ado, let's begin today's lecture. My Hero Academia Vigilantes first came around as an idea by one of the editors of the main manga, Tetsuya Sato. He had the idea of there being a spin-off of the main story, except that it would focus on new characters that we haven't seen before, with some notable exceptions that I'll mention later, of course. After consulting the head writer and illustrator for MHA, Kohei Horikoshi, and getting the go-ahead, production began on the manga Vigilantes. Hideyuki Furuhashi was called in to be the main writer of the manga, with Betancourt being assigned as the main artist. Horikoshi would get the final say after looking things over, but it would be this team of three that would facilitate the production of this manga. The first chapter, titled I'm Here, would be released in Shounen Jump on August 20th, 2016, when the main manga was already at its 9th volume. The main trio of characters would be introduced here, similar to how the main trio of the original My Hero Academia, Izuku Midoriya, Uraraka Ochako, and Tenya Ida were introduced very early on, until they were replaced with Bakugo and Todoroki, but we're not here to talk about that right now. Vigilante starts a new, much different kind of trio, consisting of the main character, university student Koichi Himawari, the high school pop star Kazuho Hanayama, also known as Popstep, and the tough-as-nails adult vigilante Iwao Oguro. These three would cross paths after a group of thugs cornered Koichi and Popstep, only to be saved by an older man going by Knuckle Duster, being Iwao Oguro. So starting with the main character, Koichi. Koichi's a character that strikes both familiarity and unfamiliarity with the audience if they have previously watched or read My Hero Academia, which in their case they probably have. First and foremost, he's a boy who looks up to All Might, aiming to emanate the kind of work that he does into the society that he lives in. Having seen the #1 hero in action, just like Izuku Midoriya, he's inspired. His desire to do good, help others, and not expect things in return also draws a similarity between the two characters. However, this is actually where most of that stops, and we get the diverging paths of two different kinds of people. Unlike Deku, Koichi not only has a quirk, but in a completely opposite direction from the former, he heads off to university and works a pretty standard job. For those who know, actually, at least in my opinion, this bears a resemblance to the character that Deku was originally supposed to be, a man named Jack Midoriya, a quote-unquote salary man who isn't among the flashiest of pro heroes. Although this concept was quickly changed to become the Izuku Midoriya we are much more familiar with today. Koichi, still having the desire to help people, becomes Nice Guy, someone who goes around the town completing menial tasks and guiding people in the right direction, while trying to avoid conflict as much as possible. Although sometimes his endeavors get him into trouble, such as how he ends up being cornered by thugs and is mostly helpless, even when Popstep gets in trouble with the thugs, he struggles to bring himself to even help her, almost leaving her to be entirely. This is a stark contrast from what Deku did when his literal bully, Bakugo, was in a similar situation. To put a long story short, Knuckle Duster saves them and they get wrapped up in his noble quest to fight crime on the streets. And this trio provides, yet again, both familiar and unfamiliar vibes to what we've seen before. Popstep brings more of the energy to the group. She's the one character in the trio that feels like she could have been plucked right out of UA High School given her age and personality. Almost like a character similar to Mina Ashido. And Knuckle Duster, as an older character who would fit more in the age group of the actual heroes from the main series, acts very different to what we've seen. He carries the impulsivity and mindset of Bakugo, just without the constant anger. With this, we get a story that's grounded in a much more literal setting, focusing right on the action in the streets instead of telling the story through a school curriculum. We see this storyline focused around literal drug trafficking, and that adds a new factor into the use of quirks and villainy. It does this by providing an important context to the world building of My Hero Academia. In the main series, we are introduced to all these major pro heroes who valiantly patrol the streets of the cities, taking down these villains and saving people. But what's the in-between? These heroes can't be everywhere at once, no matter how many of them there are. There will always be situations where heroes might be busy and they can't be there to handle it. Obviously, we never see drugs like the trigger drug, which is introduced in Vigilantes, make their way into the main series, so now, when we take it into perspective, who's taking care of it the whole time? And that is the crux of what Vigilantes is trying to tell the viewer. It's another way of telling you that Hero Society is not perfect, that there are in-betweens and flaws, something that the main series does cover at some points. The imperfection of Hero Society is something that, especially the second half of the main series covers, in my opinion, is one of the most interesting themes that the series goes over. Sure, we're here to see the crazy fights and watch the hero come out on top with their flashy moves and strategies, but learning about the ins and outs of the way society works in this super-powered world is just as interesting. A story can't rely on flashiness alone, and I want to further explain, Vigilantes definitely does not rely on that to tell an interesting story. I've seen a bit of discourse online recently when comparing the main series and Vigilantes. Specifically, I recall seeing a video comparing the character of Knuckle Duster to the character of Izuku Midoriya. Now, when I first saw this, I was already a bit surprised to see why these two characters are being put up against one another. Apparently, the video was trying to prove that Knuckle Duster was more of a hero than Izuku was for various reasons. Right then and there, I was a bit suspicious. Something didn't seem right about this comparison, and something definitely was not right. A big misconception about Vigilantes that I've seen is that we're just seeing another perspective of another group of do-gooders. And somehow that draws a comparison between Knuckle Duster and Deku? No. Knuckle Duster, along with the rest of the unique Vigilantes we see in this series, do not serve the same purpose as the heroes do in the main series. And again, that is what, to me, makes this series so interesting. Vigilantes are not heroes, but they're also not villains. They are, as I mentioned before, an in-between. And what I believe helps to cement this idea perfectly is the inclusion of actual pro heroes in the series. Very early on, we see a familiar face make his debut in the series, being Aizawa. He mistook Knuckle Duster as a villain when he was acting impulsively on something he suspected to be doing something wrong. And by the time the two depart, Aizawa understands that Knuckle Duster, like him, is trying to do good. But there is still a fundamental difference in their philosophies. It is a contrast between doing good in the eye of the law and doing good no matter what it takes. A certainly divisive dilemma that the story provides, and both pursuits have the same outcome, saving and helping people. But this isn't the first time that My Hero Academia has tackled deep and esoteric storylines for the sake of expanding on this complex world. Willful offender who will do whatever he thinks is right, huh? You've got a really bad attitude. It all brings a new argument to the table that we didn't really see in the main series. What right do vigilantes have, like Knuckle Duster, to do good if they're acting against the law? We even see characters like Detective Tsukauchi and Officer Tamakawa who, while acknowledging the work of the vigilantes is good, emphasize that they are still acting against the law regardless. And the way that they're presented almost makes them seem to be antagonistic towards the main trio, while in the main series, they're some of the most important people in supporting the protagonists. In the main series, it's basically unanimous that what the main character is doing contributes to a noble cause, and especially because they're doing it through the school, it is the quote-unquote right way to go. But here, in this series, we don't have that moral backdrop to rely on, giving room for a new kind of story to arise. Accompanied with the inclusion of familiar characters like Aizawa and Tsukauchi, we have the comfortability of familiarity while still straying enough from the main story to where it doesn't overlap too much. This all comes together for a style of writing that is allowed to breathe from the constant barrage of an ensemble cast all working towards the same goal and the rapid-fire villainy that they have to face. New dynamics, new settings, new crises and consequences, all with just enough familiarity from the main series that does these new characters justice. I don't know about you guys, but I, for one, am a big fan of the Vigilantes trio. It's like a mixing of all different kinds of dynamics we saw in the main series, but different enough for a unique story. And look, there are so many more things I could say about Vigilantes. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I didn't want to go too much into the story so as not to give any major spoilers. Look, if I really wanted to make this an hour-long video about the entirety of the series, trust me, I would have. And even knowing me, there probably would have been things that I wanted to do in this video that I probably forgot while making this script. So that's not what this lesson is for. Although I do hope that, for what the title indicated, what I provided was enough and interesting. I just kind of let my passion for this series and the characters go wild. This video was more of a shorter pitch for why I find this series, what did I say before, charming? And a great add-on to the story that the main series provides. A story which, despite its success, left many questions unanswered about Hero Society. And it is the story of My Hero Academia Vigilantes with its characters that fill in those cracks. I wasn't sure what I wanted my first actual video to be on. There were so many ideas floating around in my head. But the release of the new anime series really has me filled with motivation to talk about this story, and one that I feel has not gotten a whole lot of representation online compared to the main series. I understand it's a spin-off, but still, I think it should be recognized. And like I mentioned in my intro video, there are various topics I want to cover on this channel. Of course, Pokemon is one of my favorites, and that content will come very soon, of course. But I wanted to put this series first because I think it deserves the attention. For now, that's going to be it. Hopefully this lecture was interesting for you all to watch. If so, I'd really appreciate you making it to the end of the video. If you wanted to show your support, do make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe leave a comment giving your own opinion on the series. I'd love to hear all your feedback. My socials are in the description, and if you ever have any questions, my telenym is there as well. But besides that, this is going to be it for the day. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Drink water, and oh, one more thing. Next time, the art of Pokemon What If writing? Oh boy, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Pokemon writing outside the show and the games. A lot of people have taken it upon themselves to do that. What does it mean to fix the Pokemon story? How people approached it? Has it been successful or not? Well, let's find out next time.